Welcome, Dawn. It is so good to have you here. I'm so excited to talk about this because I love hearing from all of our students and graduates about their journey. So let's start with your story before you found the Integrative Women's Health Institute and the Women's Health Coach certification. What was your background? What were you doing for work? And what started you on the path of looking for something like this?
I'm clinically trained as a nurse practitioner and practiced in that medical model for over 20 years.
Mhm.
And what ended up happening to me, which I think happens with probably a lot of our students, is I started with my own kind of personal health issues. And since
Yeah.
I was in the traditional medical field, that's where I went to get advice. And I started having an well, let me finish this part first, and then I'll talk about in retrospect of what I know now. But
Yeah.
so I started with the typical, like, your primary care, your GYN. And after a slew of tests, ultrasounds and CTs and lab work, it was basically like, oh, you're heading into menopause, you're having menopausal symptoms. Here's either antidepressants or here's medications, or deal with it. So, it'll be fine
Mm.
once this is done. Mind you, I was 44 years old and I
Mm.
was miserable. I mean, I was losing my hair. I was having hot flashes. I was crying at my desk at work. I was yelling at my family. Hot flashes, the whole blown thing. And I was like, are you kidding me? There has to be a better way.
Right.
Than this. I don't want to take antidepressants. Not that I'm against them, but I just did that. I knew that wasn't the solution to this.
Mhm.
So that's where I started just searching. I literally just did like a Google search, like holistic care. I didn't even know what a health coach was at that point. And somehow, I don't know, the universe or your IWHI showed up on my Google search. And I watched your webinar and I was like, oh my God, like there, I had no clue that there was a way to actually incorporate lifestyle modifications, and to really take a look at a little bit deeper at what I was doing on a daily basis. So that's where I found you guys, and I was like full blown, like, let's go. Like, I
Mhm.
want to figure this out.
And
Um,
so right off the bat, you were like, okay, I want to figure this out for myself. And you kind of got a taste of what the role is for health coaching. And how did that kind of entice you or, entice you in terms of like, could this be a part of your practice? Were you going to have to shift to a new practice? Like, how did it change your perspective on work?
Yeah, I think in the beginning, I had not even, it never even occurred to me that I could open my own practice, or I could, incorporate this into the care I was doing. That stuff never even crossed my mind until I was in the program.
Mhm.
And I remember it was either even on a call with you or maybe my master coach, and that he had mentioned about talking in questions, so I
Mhm.
started like responding in questions just with my family, and then at work, like even as a nurse practitioner, we're taught that clinical model is, you're almost like the savior of the health, of treating or fixing your client. So it was very much like, here's your diagnosis, here's your treatment plan, go home and do what I say. And when you come back and you haven't followed through, like, you know, you're not following the,
You're non-compliant. Yeah.
that's the word. Yeah, non-compliant. I've actually tried to erase that word from my brain. I didn't even think of it.
That's good.
And
That's good.
I I started bringing that into my practice, into my everyday clinical practice as a nurse practitioner. Just like what simple things like, so how does that sound to you? Or, what do you think would work best for you? Or just asking more and more questions regarding the plan. And it just, change their outcomes, and what they were doing when they came back for their visits. So, I think it's you. I don't always know. I don't always think that people, when they start, realize that no matter what setting you're in, what I found, it's not just in my clinical setting, but my relationship at home with my son, with my spouse, with my parents. I feel like I just became a better human as well, because I was able to listen, like to really just get out of my head, listen, and hold that space just in everyday conversation. So it just changed everything for me.
That's so encouraging to hear, because I think sometimes people really think that like, oh, I have to, health coaching is either one of two things. It's sort of like an MLM, like selling of supplements situation, or it's just really vague. Is it therapy? What is it? Right. And really what it is, and I think what you demonstrated so well, is it's a set of communication tools that changes the medical model, whether you're practicing in conventional medicine, integrative medicine, holistic care, or lifestyle medicine. We always think that like the person in the know or whatever, the practitioner, is supposed to give this list of recommendations. And then you learned from 20 years of practice as a nurse practitioner that there's maybe a 20% rate of people actually following those recommendations, right? But when you start to say, okay, you're struggling with this issue, here's some things that need to change in your lifestyle. Where do you want to start? What do you think of this plan? Even just starting to like lay out the plan and say like, hey, what do you think about this? Or, your family has some challenges, and
Mm-hmm.
your first response, is like, do this, do this, do this, do this. Here's what we have to do to solve this, because the mom is also often in the same situation, right? Okay, here's what you have to do. Do they do it? No. Right. But if you say, if you quiet your mind and you really listen, and then you start to think in questions. So I think one of the coolest things about health coaching is the power of learning the toolkit of communication skills, powerful
Mm-hmm.
questions, mindful listening. So you come into the program. Before we go to that, did you have any hesitations about joining the program, or like once you saw like, oh my
No.
gosh, I know what this is, I need it, I'm just like, sign me up? Or were you like, okay, there's a few things I need to like figure out first?
No, not really. Let me say, I knew I was totally in. The one thing I needed to figure out, and I think I actually emailed either you or someone, like, was the time. I was worried about working, I
Mm.
was working full time. I was a mother going through menopause.
Right.
So having health challenges. So I had, brain fog, and I was worried about the time frame to be able to finish it. So I needed to clarify that. And then once I found that it was self-paced, and, I had that support from the coach, the one-on-one coach, to help me through, and the call, once I knew I had that ability to kind of spread it, kind of the spaciousness of having
Mm.
that time frame, then I was all in. Then I felt less like, because coming from that clinical background, like you as well, you're used to school, right? You start on this date, you must finish this, and you have an assignment due here, and you have to do this, and the paper's due, and I was like,
Yeah.
there's no way I can do that right now, and that's not what this program was about at all. It
Yeah.
was very nurturing and supportive, and allowed me the spaciousness to do 2 modules if I wanted on a Saturday, or to wait, a month until I dropped back into it. So then I was all in. I was like, let's go. So
Excellent. So you get in and you're like, okay, I've got the time, I've got the support, I've got the spaciousness, I've got the patience and the ability to start kind of nourishing your own healing in the beginning, because we do lead with that, because a lot of people come
mm,
to us a little bit dealing, at some level, more or less, sometimes quite significantly, their own health concerns. And I think one of the things that I learned from my clinical training, it's like, nobody cares if you're sick or healthy. Like, they just don't. Did any of your nurse practitioner jobs, they were like, hey, how are you today? No.
no, yeah, never. It's like, why are you not here? Why are you
Right.
calling in sick? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I worked at one hospital when on the orientation, it was like, if it's a like blizzard and you have the flu, we expect you to put a mask on and snowshoe here. Like, this
Yeah.
was back way before people wore masks. This was like 2006 or something. And I was like, what? you
Yeah.
know?
Mm-hmm.
But that's the culture. So I love that you pointed out that, like, hey, you have the opportunity to come here, address your own healing. And then, so you started learning this toolkit of communication skills and nutrition skills and lifestyle medicine skills. So, how did it change your practice and your work life? compared to what it had been when you came in?
Yeah, I feel like these tools I've been able to use in so many facets in my career and in my life. I was able to incorporate them into that clinical setting. So I had a much
Mhm.
better relationship, honestly, not just with my patients, but with the entire team. Because I worked in
Mhm.
a hospital orthopedic setting, so I was working with nurses, physical therapists, the pharmacists, so the staff in the office. So to be able to start stepping into that coaching hat, even in that setting, just created a, number one, less stressful, and number two, just a much more enjoyable working environment with all the team members. So I think it's important to point out it's not just about your interaction with client or patient or it's in general with everybody in your world, whether it's at work or home or whether it may be. And then I was able, and then people were contacting me to work with, because they're like, oh my God, you're a nurse practitioner and you're a health coach. So I was
Mhm.
able to take those tools and incorporate it into a clinical setting where we actually created a health coaching, a functional wellness health coaching model for clients in a pain management office. We actually incorporated these
Yeah.
tools into helping them to come up with their plan for lifestyle modification instead of just the pain medication. So it completely changed the practice. Um, and with these tools, which I think is really good, we were able to decrease the amount of narcotic use by 35%
Wow.
in the office by just making them more engaged and more as an active participant in their treatment plan, um, versus us telling them what to do. So I think that's just huge. Um,
That is
ex-
huge. I mean, with the opioid crisis, with,
yeah,
you know, so many challenges we have in pain management, addiction challenges. I mean, 35% reduction. I've never heard any other tool that can give you something like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I think the important part that in retrospect that I don't want to miss is that we talk about right, we talk about motivational interviewing, we talk about the tools from coaching, but the to me the part of those tools are addressing lifestyle, but
Mhm.
the lifestyle components of the nutrition, the sleep, and to me stress,
Yeah.
they don't teach you that in
Yeah.
school. Like they don't teach you that stuff in NP school. I don't think in any clinical, definitely about
Yeah.
nutrition, but nobody ever in my entire, I'm talking through fertility, through post trauma. I had a horrific car accident with fractures, and through trauma, through infertility, through menopause. Not once did anybody ever ask me, how are you? So how are things at home? Like,
Mm.
how's your nutrition? How's your stress level? How are
Mhm.
you handling that? Never. And now in retrospect, I was like, no wonder I had all these problems with fertility and menopause at 44 and all these things. I was stressed out of my freaking mind. Like
Yeah.
constantly fight or flight, crash or burn, fight or flight, crash or burn. And I think that alone, having someone learning those tools to be able to hold that space to talk about those foundations, nothing else matters if you haven't done that with your clients or your patients.
Yeah. And I think the other nice thing about the community that we have, and you said sort of the support of the length of the program and the people involved in the program, is so many people, practitioners or people on their own health journeys who come to us think, to be a health coach, you have to start like a stressful business and there's all
Mm-hmm.
these things. But the reality is the step one is learning these tools and turning the mirror on yourself, which you
Mm-hmm.
demonstrate so beautifully. But then also, lots of our graduates don't even change jobs. They just have a much, much better experience in their current job, or maybe they get promoted or they, work similarly, or they work in a more integrative environment, but the same job. But they bring to it a different perspective. And so they're not so burned out because it's not like
Mm-hmm.
your patient didn't get better, your patient didn't show up, or like there's not all this blaming. There's a lot of co-holding the experience between you and your client and even your patient and even your entire team. So you don't have to blow everything up and, start your own business if you don't want to. You can just start with the changes within yourself and your current job and then see what happens, because, then you move to this integrative pain management program. You started that, and clearly other things have happened from there. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. And then that just starts opening doors. And then what ended up happening is people saw my transformation and what I was doing. And so people started contacting me like, hey, can you help me? So I had the ability to have kind of my own side gig per se. I had clients of my own. And that opened up the avenue. So I was able to use it to improve my clinical practice, to open up, to incorporate in an integrative holistic approach to a pain management practice. I was able to see my own clients on the side, opened up my own LLC and saw clients. I was able to, with those skills, become part of IWHI. I was able to incorporate all those tools as well to become a master coach and to now also help with the operations part of IWHI. So there's so many avenues that you can use these tools. It can be any of the, if you want to open up your own private business, absolutely have at it. If you want to incorporate it where you are, you can use it there. So there's so many, I think, ways that you can use them, and people start coming to you to use those tools because they see your transformation and the doors that open for you. I had no clue those would be the doors that opened for me. So just so many ways that you can utilize the skills.
Yeah. And I think that's an important message, that you don't have to know 100% what you want to do with this when you start. If it's resonating with you, if you think it can just help with your own health, wellness, your family, your current work situation, then everything we teach you in the program and everything you practice and do begins to show you what the next step is. It's the same thing as when we're working with our clients, right? They don't have to 100% know what they're going to be doing in 5 years from now. We just bring it to the next best step, and then take a pause every once in a while and play with some bigger visions and ideas. But also sometimes things come to people that are so unexpected. And I think that happened with you, and it happened for you and for us now that you're working on our team. And we always hire people that have gone through our programs. I mean, I think 95% of the time, because, we find that it's a good alignment with the work that we do, is people that are drawn to actually do this work anywhere in the world. So it's a lot of fun for me to see this evolve over so many years. So if you were to kind of take a 30,000 foot view now, and you learned so much from the experience for your own personal health, for your family, for your work life. If you're talking to someone who is in nursing, nurse practitioner, and they're just kind of on the fence about whether or not this is the right next step for them, do you have any words of wisdom? Why do you think this program could be so valuable for them?
Yeah, absolutely. I think no matter if you're in the healthcare field, like you said, nurse, whatever, that they don't teach us this. Like the skills and the tools that I walked away with, they don't teach us this in our clinical setting. And it will and I think specifically for nurse practitioners, because they have in so many states now, they can open up their own practices just in general, because they have independent practice like we do now in Florida. What you learn from here, you can incorporate. It's going to set you aside. I mean, it's going to set, you don't want to say aside. What word am I looking for? Apart. It's going to set you apart from someone with just that traditional clinical training, because you are going to know how to collaborate to with your client to come up with the best plan that works for them. And I think more importantly, what it taught me was that they know the person who knows what's best for them is the client, is yourself. and they actually have the tools. They know what the next step is. There's just so much noise that they don't have. They need someone to help guide them to that. And often it's the first time in their entire life for your clients, patient, whatever setting it is, where someone's actually asked them what they wanted, held space for them, believed them, trusted them, that their symptoms and what they're telling you. And to be able to bring that to that setting, not only does it, up level your care just in general, but it's going to make you the sought after provider in whatever setting you may be in. So it's a no-brainer for me. Even if, honestly, even if you've never used it in a clinical setting, which there's no way you won't. Once you have the skills, you can't not use them. It changes your life, how you show up in the world, how you perceive the world, interact with the world, your relationships with patients, family. It's worth every cent, just to me, for that alone. Even if you didn't take all the other things that I've been able to use it for, it was worth it for that. Totally different.
So beautiful. And you're exactly right. And this applies to anyone with an independent practice, as you said, physicians, physical occupational therapists, mental health therapists, physician assistants, anyone, because I think, when we survey people looking for healing for any number of things, the biggest struggle that they have, and when we look at larger scale data, they just don't feel heard. They feel gaslit. They feel downplayed. They feel they're made to, they feel like they're crazy. They feel like no one really cares. These skills give you the capacity to communicate that in a really efficient and I think really kind of just nourishing and healing way. That interaction alone is healing. So
yes. Yeah, 100%. I think that is the biggest probably takeaway, is exactly what you just said. So, I went through that myself. So, yeah. Like, you're fine.
Yeah,
Don't
right.
mind.
Oh, you're fine. Right. We did 1,000 tests. You're good. You're just in menopause. Just live with it for the next 10 years and then you'll be fine after that.
Everything looks great. Yeah. You're just starting menopause. It's all fine. Who cares that you're yelling at your family and throwing cups in the living room and crying at your desk and you can't sleep and your hair's falling out and you're bloated? It's fine. It'll be fine once it's over. So,
all fine. Just live with it. Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, thank you so much, Dawn, for sharing your story and, for being so inspiring. And I think for just giving people that wisdom and that inspiration that, hey, just, jump in for yourself, even if only for yourself. And then you never know what doors are going to open from there.
Yep.